Hey everyone, it's Zephrina, and today I just kind of wanted to go over how you do horse races and what all it takes in order to do horse races. Because I have been getting a lot of messages and questions on my video of how you do horse races, because you can get a lot of fun stuff and you can get horse racing seals from doing the horse races. So in order to join a horse race, you just go, well, first you have to be on the second server of each channel. So for instance, Belenos 2, some other ones, for example, would be Valencia 2 or Kama Sylvia 2. There just needs to be a 2 at the end of it. And you will have the ability to join horse races. And so up at the top right corner, you're going to see this little horseshoe like in a rosette. You're going to click that, it's going to say race info, and here it says that there is a tier 4 race that will be starting in 3 minutes. So my racing stable is here in Heidel, since I spend most of my time in Heidel, so it's just easy to grab whatever tier is going to be racing next. If I'm just doing something else and I see that a horse race is open, I'm going to grab whatever horse is going to be submitted for that tier, and then I can pull them out. So it's a tier 4 race, and so here's my tier 4 racehorse. His name is Asa, and we'll just go ahead and open. So when you join the race, here we've got 2 minutes left, so we joined, and so there is one person waiting, so that's just me. Honestly, a lot of the time you're going to find that you're the only person who is doing these races, because the races are honestly quite dead at the moment. So I'm probably going to be the only person in this race, which is gonna be pretty nice. I enjoy racing by myself just because, well, you will 100% get the full 5 seals. So if you finish in first place, you get 5 seals. If you finish in third place or in second place, you get 3, and then you either get just 1 or 2 for third place. But honestly, it's been so long since I have had 3 people in a horse race, I don't remember the prize for finishing in third place. Once you've signed up for the race, you aren't going to be able to talk to anybody, so you won't be able to go back and talk to the stable manager. So make sure that you get all of your talking done, you've put everything away, you've grabbed whatever you needed before you enter the race, because you won't be able to talk to anybody. And then just make sure you're all set up to go. And then you can do whatever while you're waiting for the horse race to start. You can sit on your horse, you can train your horse for whatever you plan on doing, like maybe you can train up your sprint or your instant excel, whatever you want to do. So when the race starts, you're going to be transported automatically to that place, and then you're going to be transported back at the end of the race. So you can join anywhere as long as you're on the tier horse when you enter. So in order to click enter race or sign up for race, you have to be sitting on a horse of that tier. And so say you're out grinding and you brought a tier 7 with you. If it says that a tier 7 horse race is available, you can leave your grinding spot, jump on your horse, select sign up for the race, and then you will be transported to the racing area, and then at the end of the race you will be transported back. The only problem with that is if you're in a grinding area and you and your horse get dropped in a mob area, you could die. So always be somewhere safe when you sign up for a race, so that when you get transferred back after the race, you're not gonna die. So here we're just in the loading screen for the horse race. So me and my horse are being transported to the start of the race. Once you get to your destination, if this thing ever finishes loading, once you get to your destination, wherever it might be, if you do races long enough, you're going to know the general route in which you're going to be racing pretty much as soon as it drops you there. So you'll want to get on your horse as soon as you arrive, and you won't want to move for a little bit, because if you see this line, you don't want to leave it until the race starts, or you will be disqualified. There has been a few times where I've been AFK and my character just kind of wandered out of the circle just kind of randomly, and it disqualified me from the race. So always make sure that until the race starts, you just don't exit that circle. As soon as the race starts, all you have to do is pretty much follow your pathing. If you're the only one racing, you can honestly press T and just do something else while you're running between points. So I could just sit here and just auto path from section to section, but that'll take a while. So if you're racing against somebody else and say the other person has a really good horse and you're on a really crappy horse, so you might want to tell them at the beginning, hey, you're going to win, I just, wait for me at the finish line. Because when the first person finishes, you have 60 seconds for everybody else to cross the finish line. If you end up not crossing the finish line in that minute, then you will not get anything. You will pretty much be considered disqualified. And so there are people out there in the higher tier races, such as like tier 6 or tier 7 or 8, where they're on this incredibly fast horse and you weren't expecting anybody to be in the race because, nobody ever joins these races. So, if you go into those races thinking, well, I'm not going to be racing against anybody, and somebody does, and you're not on a very good horse, make sure you tell them. Some people will just race to the finish line anyway, and then if you don't make it in 60 seconds after they make it to the goal line, then you're kind of SOL. But races really aren't that hard, and again, 90% of the time, you won't be against anybody, so you pretty much just have to run from point to point, and that's basically it. Races are not as hard as some people seem to think they are, or they think that they're going to have really, big competition. I'm not honestly that good at racing. I do have race horses, simply for the point of if I do end up getting into a match with somebody, I can compete and at least come in second place. But honestly, most of the time you can wander into a race with a level 1 horse and just auto path from spot to spot and you'll be fine. But yeah, this is horse racing for you. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. That covers anything about horse racing or anything horse related in BDO or anything not horse related. I am more than happy to do a video on it. I usually have some time available. I'm working on a bigger video that I should be posting here this week or this weekend. Anyway, here's the goal line. And then you'll get this nice thing that says you finished first place or second place or third place, and then so I got 5 seals, and then it says you'll be transported to the previous location, and it'll be 60 seconds after the race has completed, and you will be put back where you were before. So that is how you race, and then after I get back, I will go ahead and go over my racehorses and show you kind of what you need on a horse in order to be competitive. Alright guys, so Asa and I are back at our previous location here from right before the race, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys who I have in my racing stable as far as if you do end up racing against somebody else, you might want to have a few racehorses so that you are able to be competitive and at least finish in that 60 seconds after the first person goes through, so that you at least get something from the race. And so I do have a stable full of my racehorses, so I guess we'll start out with Asa here. So Asa is he's a pretty naturally fast horse. He's got 130.9. The only reason why it's 135 is that I have plus 10 steel combat horseshoes on him, which gives him plus 5 movement speed. Steel combat horseshoes are honestly pretty easy to come by, so you can either buy a ton of them, and, well, I use them for stacking, so I get plus 10s every now and again when I fail at my stacking. And so I frequently have these plus 10s that I can either sell, or I can just turn around and put on my racehorses, which I frequently do for an extra just 5% speed bonus. And if not, you can sell them for 8 million, or you can buy them for 8 million if you just want some nice horseshoes for your horse. Other than that, I have some basic fighting spirit stirrups, just gives you 1.5% in break. And then the saddle you actually need simply for the sprint. So Asa has sprint and drift. I still haven't trained up drift, as you could probably remember. And he also has instant excel. So the 3 skills that you would want a horse to have, it's not always possible in the lower levels, is going to be drift, sprint, and instant excel. For those who don't know, there is a cooldown time on instant excel. So after you use instant excel, it cools down for 2 or 3 seconds before you can use instant excel again. But if you use drift, if you press instant excel and then drift, then you can instant excel again immediately after you drift. And so that helps give you just a little bit more speed. And sprint, of course, just adds to your top speed. And so those are your 3 big racing skills. And so I need to get drift trained up on this guy. But you'll usually want them to be level 30, because at that point they're going to have their highest stats. And their highest stats are going to be, important. If you're racing against somebody who has a level 30 horse with all their skills trained up and you're on a level 1 that you just bought off the market in order to get into a race, you're probably not going to make it. So if you don't have a racehorse for that level and you see that somebody's already signed up, you might want to consider just waiting for the next race where you either have a racehorse for that tier, or you have time to train up a horse for that tier. So Asa is my tier 4. I don't have one for every tier, sadly. So in my Heidel, I have a few horses that I train, and then a few horses that I use for my races. So I actually bought this horse off the market. His name is Crap, and so I need to change that at some point. But since he is a tier 1, he can't use sprint or instant excel. If they do manage to learn sprint or instant excel, it's going to be really incredibly rare because he's a tier 1. So those higher level skills are going to be really hard for them to learn. And so if you have a tier 1 or a tier 2 that has your sprint, drift, and instant excel, I am guaranteeing that you will probably win every race, unless the other person has all of that too. So he actually doesn't have any of those skills, but he has a base speed of 118 at level 25, which is extremely high for a tier 1. And so if you're just looking to get into horse racing and you just kind of want to check it out, tier 1 is a good place to start if you want to start making race horses. So the gray tier 1 is going to have a faster base speed at high levels than your brown tier 1. So here you can see a level 5 tier 1 brown horse who only has 104.7% speed, which is going to be a huge detriment when you're just doing races. And then you can see this tier 5 gray horse has 110.1 in speed. So your gray horses, as far as tier 1, is going to be a lot higher. I'm going to place a link in the description about which horses are fastest, because different coats actually excel in different, like the white horses have better speed and acceleration, and the black horses have better turn and brake. Just as an example, like even at tier 8 level, pure white horses are going to have a lot more speed and acceleration than your turn and brake. So if you want a good all-around horse, you might actually want to think about getting maybe a gold tier 8, because the golden tier 8 is going to excel more in all of the areas. But I'm going to place a link in the description below that talks about each coat and what they specifically excel in as far as their stats, so that you can make a more informed decision if you are going to be buying some racehorses. So that's my tier 1 racehorse is named Crep. I showed you my tier 4. Wraith is a pure white tier 8 horse that I am currently trading to see if I can make him a racehorse, because my other tier 8 that I use is Nocturne, and you can see right here that he's a black underneath his special coat. He's a pure black horse, and so his turn and brake is like 10% better than his speed and acceleration, which can be a huge detriment to your race horses, since your basic just base speed is going to be huge. And so Wraith here has a lot more speed and acceleration, and he's only level 14. So he might end up being my racehorse, despite Nocturne being he is my main horse. I use him whenever I need to get somewhere and need to get somewhere fast. He is a courser, so he has sideways, special, instant excel, and he just gets around really quick. But I'm hoping that my pure white here Wraith is going to eventually pick up the mantle, and I can maybe turn Nocturne into a dream horse maybe at some point. Jackie is a training horse. I already have my tier 4, so he's just going to be for breeding at some point. Barb is a tier 3. She is good enough that I would probably race her if a tier 3 race were to come up. She's not particularly fast. She doesn't have a lot of skills, but considering you don't see a lot of tier 3 races, and anybody who joins will probably not be very skilled or not have a very good horse, not having a great tier 3 is going to be fine. You might have a lot of competition at the tier 5, because for a while there they gave out these black and white horses with sprint and instant excel already trained up on the horse. So you're going to see a lot of these black and whites in the tier 5 races. So as far as my tier 5 racehorse here, I bought her just like this. So she has instant excel, she has sprint, and she has drift. I haven't trained up drift yet, I just bought her, but she's a level 30. She is not particularly fast because she is a black based horse, so I need to drop some horseshoes on her. But here I have some +5 light hide stirrups, which give +3% to brake, and then I have +3% to turn on with this light hide saddle. So the main reason I guess I have the saddle is for your sprint capabilities, but she will need horseshoes on her in order to be competitive at some point. And the tier 8 races are the most competitive in the horse racing world of BDO. So we're just gonna pull out Nocturne here because he's my tier 8 racehorse. So this is Nocturne. You have seen him in probably most of my videos if you've watched any of the other ones. So here is simply what I have on him. He really doesn't have a good saddle or good stirrups. He has really good horseshoes. Again, since he's black based, his speed really sucks, and so he needs those horseshoes in order to help pick that up. And then he also has a costume, and since he has the full set, he gets an extra 1% movement speed. So if you do end up doing tier 7 or tier 8 horse races, then you're going to want to put a costume on the horse, and just to give yourself that extra little bonus, because even despite Nocturne and I being pretty good together, I've gotten very used to how he rides. Every horse is going to ride a little bit different. I've gotten used to how he works and how he rides and how his speed and his turn and his brake work well together. And still, when I end up in a race with somebody else, I typically lose simply because he's just not base speed fast enough to compete with other tier 8 horses. So that's just something to consider, is that you might end up not wanting a pure black tier 8 horse. You might even not want a pure white because they don't have a lot of brake or turn, which can be hugely detrimental in a race if you need to turn or stop fast enough so that you can go a different direction. Because there are a lot of races where you have to get into little nooks and crannies and spin back around and then run back out in order to get to your next location. And if you're in a head-to-head nose race, the horse with the better turn and brake is going to do better in those situations. So if you're going to be doing a tier 8 racehorse, you might want a just basic, gold or the Pinto horses in order to be competitive, since they're going to be better all around. But again, I'm going to place that description. I'm going to place that link in the description below so that you have a better idea of what horse you would want if you want specific stats to be better on them. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to help, and if you need any other resources, I'll be happy to provide them for you. Thanks, guys.